إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد. So today, inshallah, for the next few weeks or so, I'm going to begin a new class up until the time of Hajj, inshallah. And the reason for that, barakallahu feekum, is due to the fact that one of the, and I've mentioned it a few times, so do the scholars, such as Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz rahimahullah used to mention it also, that it is one of the affairs that actually many of the people, that they are negligent concerning. They are negligent concerning the Hajj and its importance and its obligations and so on. Today and over the next few weeks, I'm not going to really go into the virtues of Hajj because I've done that on several occasions. And there are several articles on my website that have been translated into the English language that mention some of the virtues and the benefits and the verses from the Book of Allah and from the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that mention the importance of Hajj, its station in Islam, and that which the scholars have stated regarding its great virtue in terms of the wiping away of sins, that a person, all of his sins, every single sin, is washed away and wiped away for the one who performs Hajj. But the purpose of these durus that I'm going to begin, inshallah, in explanation of the rites of Hajj, the manasikul Hajj wal Umrah, meaning the rites pertaining to Hajj and Umrah, and also that which is legislated by way of the various visitations and the places that it is an obligation to visit, meaning from those places that are visited during Hajj and even after Hajj. Like for example, those who travel to Medina, even though the visitation of Medina is not a part of Hajj, but many of the people take the opportunity to visit Medina because it is a permissible and legislated visitation to the masjid of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the whole of this topic really, from Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, from the great ulama and the fuqaha of this era, is pertaining to the regulations of Hajj. So we'll mention, for example, and I'll just cover in brief some of the headings that we're going to mention. And from them is the obligation or the preconditions for Hajj. What are the shurut? What are the conditions that make Hajj an obligation? Also, regarding that which makes Hajj viable for women, meaning what does she have to have in order for her to make Hajj? Also the mawaqit, the various miqats of Hajj that you have to pass. Also that which is an obligation by way of the hadi, meaning the sacrificial animal. Also the mahdhurat, the violations of the ihram, and also the violations of the Hajj itself. Likewise, we're going to mention those affairs that nullify the Hajj, those affairs that were you to fall into them, that you would have to rectify it by way of expiation or slaughter or fasting or other than that, in accordance to the Sharia. We're going to mention that which is generally related to the method and the mode of performing Umrah, how an individual performs Umrah. Also the Sifatul Hajj, the description of the Hajj and how it is performed and the method that it is performed upon. The rites of Hajj itself. Likewise, we're going to mention the pillars of Hajj and the obligations of Hajj. And that covers 8 chapters. so far. 8 chapters. The 9th chapter, that which the people fall into by way of errors in performing Hajj. And the errors performed in the various rites of Hajj. For example, the errors that are done during the tawaf, during the sa'i, during the stoning of the jamarat, during the tawaf al-wida', the farewell tawaf. Then finally, those issues that are connected to the ziyaratul masjid al-nabawi, the ziyarah to the masjid al-nabawi of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the ziyarah to it, and also the various other places such as visitation of the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and that which is connected to that. And then finally finishing off with some as'ila wa ajwiba regarding the various masail of Hajj. All of this taken from, by and large, 2 books. From them is the Sharh Mumti' wa Sharh Mumti' ala Zad al-Mustaqna', which is the explanation of Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Fawzan of this tremendous work in fiqh. And secondly, and more predominantly actually, that a concise version of Hajj, even though I say concise, but having said that, it is 176 pages in Arabic, and that is the Manasikul Hajji wal Umrah wal Mashru' fi Ziyarati, the rites of Hajj and Umrah and that which has been legislated regarding the visitation, and here visitation predominantly referring to the visitation to Medina. So those are the topics that we're going to cover, and it is not just for those who perform Hajj, but for every Muslim to know, because of course Hajj is from the pillars of Al-Islam. It is the 5th pillar in most of the narrations of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hajj is mentioned as the 5th pillar. And I mentioned this affair of Hajj because even though many of our brothers and sisters, many of the Muslims, they give great importance, and rightly so, to the Shahadatain and to the Salah, and they pay the Zakah, and they fast the month of Ramadan, yet many of them, they reach the age of 40 and 50 and 60, or even if they are able-bodied, with wealth, enough wealth to perform Hajj, before their 20s, or even in their 20s and 30s, they ignore it. Because for some reason they put Hajj at the back of their minds. They don't give it the importance that the Sharia gives it. And when you look at the Manasikul Hajj, and when you look at the Fadail, and some of the virtues that are connected to Hajj, and its importance as a pillar of Al-Islam, wallahi, my brothers and sisters, you would strive with the greatest of striving to fulfill this pillar, just like you fulfill the pillar of Salah and Zakah and Siyam. Like you give the importance to them, you would give the importance to Hajj, if you knew its value and if you knew its worth. But today is not the time to go through the virtues. And in fact, if I recall correctly, that there were 2 or 3 khutb that I delivered, and they are available on salafisounds.com, and I think even our brother Abu Hakim likewise, that we have delivered several khutb on the virtues of Hajj itself and the virtues of Mecca and Medina, and those audios are available on Salafi Sounds. If you want it in article form, then likewise they are downloadable free in article form on my website, abukhadeejah.com. And I advise the brothers, those are translations of the words of the scholars, so it is in your favor and in your benefit, inshallah, that if you were to refer back to them. So the first chapter that I'm going to refer to, and I am going to miss a few pages here and there, just for the sake of brevity, because between now and Hajj, as far as I can tell, we have approximately 2 or 3 weeks. So I want to get as much of this book done in a concise manner, and to get through to the real meat of the topic of Hajj and its regulations. So he mentions Al-Fasl al-Thani. So he mentions it as a second chapter, because the first chapter actually is referring to the traveller and the prayer of the traveller. And in brief, what he mentions is that, of course, the traveller, when he's upon a journey, that his prayers are shortened. He doesn't have to combine. Combining is as you are upon the journey. And as for shortening the prayer, then it is something that has been legislated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shorten the prayer whilst you are upon the journey. So whilst you are upon the journey to Hajj, and you've reached Mecca, and likewise Jeddah, and then thereon to Mecca, and then from Mecca to Medina, and the journey throughout, that like any other journey, you would shorten the prayer. So all of the units of prayer that are normally 4 would be reduced down to 2. And the only time you would pray the full 4 is if you are praying behind an imam who is resident and he prays 4, so therefore you pray 4 behind him. You do not remove yourself after 2. Even if you catch the prayer late, then you still pray what he prayed. So if he prayed 4 for dhuhr, you pray 4 for dhuhr. However, if you are not praying behind the imam, then you would pray 2. If you were to pray on your own or in a group of musafirin, in a group of travelers, then you would pray 2. One of you would lead, calling the adhan, calling the iqama. Then he would pray 2 and you would follow him in the 2. And this is something that is established from Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we have mentioned its proofs on numerous occasions. Again, you can download an article from the website abukhadeejah.com where I've translated some of the words of Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan on shortening the prayer, and that was from the Sharh al-Sunnah of Imam al-Barbahari with regard to shortening the prayer and making taqsir of the salah and shortening the prayer whilst upon a journey. As for the sunan al-rawatib, and these are those sunan or those sunnah prayers as we refer to them in English, the sunnah prayers that are connected to the obligatory prayers, then whilst you're upon a journey, then none of those are prayed except for the 2 before Fajr. Except for the 2 before Fajr, no other sunan al-rawatib, meaning the sunnah prayers that are established and emphasized, that are connected to the obligatory prayers, the 5 obligatory prayers, none of them are to be prayed whilst upon a journey, except for the 2 before Fajr. And the only other thing that the Prophet ﷺ used to pray upon a journey regularly, and that was, of course, the night prayer. And that, of course, includes the witr. The Prophet ﷺ never missed the witr prayer, neither when he was resident, nor when he was upon a journey. So the night prayer the Prophet ﷺ used to establish, and the witr being, of course, the night prayer, and the end of the night prayer. So the witr should never be missed, whether you are resident or upon a journey. And likewise, the 2 sunnah before Fajr should never be missed. As for the rest of the rawatib that are connected to the obligatory prayers upon a journey, then none of them are to be prayed. None of them are to be prayed. Then that only leaves that which is referred to as the nawafil al-mutlaqa, meaning the optional prayers that are not connected to the regular 5 daily prayers. Like, for example, the 2 between the adhan and the iqama. You can pray them even upon a journey or resident. Or the 2 that you would pray after performing the wudu, or the duha prayer, or the night prayer. Then these prayers, all of them can be prayed, whether you are resident or upon a journey. The 2 for entering the masjid. Like, for example, entering the Masjid al-Haram. Normally, of course, if you're making Hajj and the Tawaf al-Qudum, or the Tawaf of the first Umrah that you embark upon when you enter into Mecca, then you wouldn't go in the masjid and pray 2 Tahiyatul Masjid. You would not do that. Rather, you would head straight for the black stone, and you would begin your tawaf at the black stone, meaning you would circumambulate the Kaaba. You would circle the Kaaba, and you would not pray the 2 for entering the Haram, because that was not something that the scholars and that which the early Salaf would do. Rather, they would go straight to the black stone, and then they would begin the tawaf. As for any other time that you enter the Haram or any other masjid, whether you're a resident or whether you're upon a journey, you would pray the 2 rak'ahs before sitting down in the masjid. Barakallahu feekum. And a person may ask, does that mean now when I enter the Masjid al-Haram, for example, at Fajr, if I enter the Haram, the Masjid al-Haram at Fajr time, do I pray Tahiyatul Masjid or do I pray the 2 sunnah for Fajr? Then in this situation, you combine the 2, because the niyyah is the same. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, let not one of you sit down up until he has prayed raka'atayn. He did not say which raka'atayn. It could be any 2 raka'atayn. It could be any 2 rak'ahs. It could be 2 rak'ahs that are part of the 4 for dhuhr. It could be the 2 rak'ahs that are part of the 2 for the 2 for Fajr. Or it could be any other 2 sunan that you pray. But as long as you pray 2 before sitting down. But anyway, these are generally the rulings regarding the salah, the salah whilst you are upon a safar, whilst you are upon a journey. And so long as you are upon a journey, up until you return back to your home, in this situation, either you are coming back to the United Kingdom, to Birmingham, or to London, or to Bradford, or to Manchester, or wherever you live, or to, if you live in the United States of America, for those of you listening online, then to New York, or to Philadelphia, or wherever you live, that when you return back to your cities, from the time that you leave, up until you return, you would be upon a journey, shortening the prayer in that regard. Barakallahu feekum. Any questions on that particular issue? Not outside of that, right? Just particularly to what I said. No. No, that topic is separate topic. Just on the topic of the salah, the prayer of the traveller. Just the prayer of the traveller. The tawaf and all of that will come, because that's the whole subject matter, of course, the tawaf and so on. Right, as for the journey, I don't want to really enter into the ikhtilafat or the various opinions upon how far you have to be upon a journey. We're just dealing with the issue of Hajj and Umrah. So long as you have left your city, then from the United Kingdom, so long as you leave your city of Birmingham with the intention of being upon a journey, you are considered to be upon a journey up until you return back to your city. I don't want to start entering into distances and times and so on. The prayer of the traveller as it relates to our journey to Hajj or Umrah. So this is the prayer of the traveller as it relates to that. As for the salah of the musafir in terms of the distance that he has to travel and so on, that discussion is for another occasion. And inshallah we'll cover it on another occasion, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. So we'll move on now inshallah to the second chapter that he brings, as we mentioned, and that is concerning the conditions for Hajj. So he mentions that the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Islamic Sharia, that it comes with regard to the affairs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated, that they consist of those affairs that are connected to it by way of obligations and pillars and preconditions. Now with regard to the preconditions, then these are affairs that must be in place before your Hajj can be considered to be valid. So these conditions, if these conditions are present, then you must go and perform Hajj. Right? And he mentions, for this reason, he mentions that the obligations or the obligation of Hajj does not become an obligation upon the servant except with the following conditions. So this is what we mean by conditions here. That the obligations of Hajj, or the obligation of Hajj does not become an obligation in itself upon a person up until the following conditions are met with regard to that particular person. The first of them is that he is a Muslim. That person must be a Muslim, meaning that he is not an unbeliever. And upon the kafir and upon the disbeliever, Hajj is not obligatory before Islam. Up until he becomes a Muslim, there is no Hajj upon him. So, the first thing that Islam obligates upon a person before his Hajj becomes an obligation upon him is that he must become a Muslim. He must be a Muslim. And this is, as he has mentioned, and this is concerning, of course, after he becomes a Muslim, then all of the obligations of Islam become obligatory upon him. And none of those obligations are accepted from him unless he is a Muslim. So that's the first condition. The second condition is aql, meaning that he must be sane. Aql here not meaning that he must be intelligent. What it means here is that he must be sane, free from insanity. So upon the majnoon, or upon the insane person, Hajj is not obligatory. So Hajj is not obligatory upon such a person because of the fact that Hajj, it is a condition of Hajj, or a person's Hajj is not sound up until he has intention, and he has the desire to perform the Hajj, that he has that drive and that desire to perform the Hajj and the wish to perform Hajj. And this is not possible upon a majnoon. A majnoon who is not sane, he cannot have intention and he cannot have that drive and that desire and that intent to perform Hajj. So that's the second condition. The third condition is bulugh. That a person, Hajj becomes obligatory upon him with this third condition also, and that is that he must have reached adulthood. So this adulthood is established by one of three affairs. The first of them he describes as al-inzal. And that is the flow of semen from the male. The flow of semen, meaning that he is able to have children. Secondly, that the appearance of coarse hair in the private area, around the private area such as the groin, then when the coarse hair appear upon a child, then he's no longer a child, he has entered into adulthood. The third of them is that he reaches the age of 15. So when any of these three are reached, then any one of those three are found in a child, then that child is no longer a child, he is now or she is now considered to be an adult. Considered to be an adult. And the fourth condition, and that is something that is particular for women, is to the exception of men, and that is that when she enters into her menstrual cycle. So when a woman enters into a menstrual period, then it is considered that she is now an adult, even if that occurs at the age of 10. So adulthood is a condition, and adulthood in a man is one of three, any one of these three, i.e. the emission of semen. Secondly, the appearance of coarse hair, and that is for male and female. Thirdly, the age of 15. Whichever one of these three comes first, in a male or a female, then they have entered into adulthood. And the additional fourth condition that is only for women, and that is, of course, the onset of the menstrual cycle. Even if there is at the age of 10, she has become a woman. Now, when these conditions are met, these conditions that we have mentioned, then that person now, Hajj becomes obligatory. Then we're going to move on because there are obviously other conditions, but those three so far. Then he mentions, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, that Hajj is not obligatory upon the one who is less than the age of bulugh, due to their young age. Bulugh here meaning adulthood. Anyone who has not reached the age of adulthood, and adulthood, as we know now, is established by 3 affairs in men, 1 of 3 affairs in men, and 1 of 4 affairs in women. Any one of those 4 in women, any one of those 3 in men. So if they have not reached adulthood, then Hajj is not obligatory upon them due to their tender age or young age, and due to the fact of their inability to carry out their affairs below the age of adulthood, due to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ that the pen has been lifted upon 3. The pen has been lifted from 3. From the sleeping person up until he awakes, from the young person up until he reaches adulthood, and upon the majnoon, upon the insane, up until he returns back to sanity. Reported by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, Abu Dawud, and Nasa'i, and Al-Hakim said it is Sahih. He said, however, what about the Hajj of a child below the age of adulthood? He said, however, the Hajj of a child below the age of adulthood, a young child, it is Sahih. It is sound, and it is correct, and it is accepted. Due to the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhuma, who said that Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he came to a place upon a journey. Rawha was the name of the place. He passed by a place, Ar-Rawha. And the Prophet ﷺ said, who are these people that are living here? So the companions, they said to the Prophet ﷺ, they are Muslims. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ, he asked the people who were living there, who are you? They said, we are Muslims. And they said to the Prophet ﷺ, Man anta, who are you? So the Prophet ﷺ said, Ana Rasulullah, I am the Messenger of Allah. So then a woman came out, and she took her child, and she raised the child up to the Prophet ﷺ whilst he was on the back of his riding beast. And she said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ali hada Hajj? Is there Hajj for this child? So she lifted up her toddler, or her young child, up to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said to her, she said to him, is there Hajj for this child? The Prophet ﷺ said, yes. And for you, is a reward, meaning, and for you is a reward. Yes, there is Hajj for the child, and for you is a reward. The hadith reported by Imam Muslim. So, here the Prophet ﷺ, he affirmed the Hajj of a young child. The Hajj of a young child. So then, if the Hajj of a young child is affirmed, then all of the affairs and the rules of Hajj are also affirmed for that child. So therefore, the child must be kept away from all of those affairs that the muhrim, the one who is in ihram, when he enters into Hajj, must keep away from. And therefore, likewise, you must keep the child away from the violations of Hajj and violations of the ihram. However, if the child was to make a mistake, let's say he was to fall into we're going to cover the violations of Hajj, by the way, so keep that in your mind. However, if the child was to fall into a violation of ihram, of the Hajj or the Umrah, then there is no compensation to be paid on behalf of the child. Because, for example, if an adult male was to cut his hair or to shave his head whilst in a state of ihram, he has to expiate for that. He has to pay a fidyah. He has to atone for that. He has to do something to rectify that. As for the child, if the child was to do something like that, then upon the child there is nothing. Nothing is to be paid upon the child. So if the child falls into a mahdhura, and a violation of ihram, then nothing is to be done. But if he makes a mistake deliberately, and meaning that if the child was to he was to stay away from jihad, from the mahdhurat of ihram. However, if he was to make a deliberate mistake, then is there anything of him of compensation or fidyah? Then the answer is nothing, not upon the child and nor upon the guardian of the child, as we have mentioned. Barakallahu feekum. However, by the way, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions in other places like Sharh al-Mumti', that he mentions, however, though the child has made Hajj, and though the Hajj is counted, it is not the Hajj that is counted for him as part of the pillars of Islam. It is not the Hajjatul Islam that is obligatory upon him, meaning that he'll get the reward for it, and likewise the guardian, the mother or the father, will get the reward. But however, that Hajj is not counted as the Hajj that is obligatory as a pillar of his Hajj, because that is under what condition? What are one of the conditions? Adulthood, bulugh. So he has to perform that Hajj again when he's old, even though it is sound as a child, but it is not the Hajj of his Islam. The fourth condition is that a person who is performing the Hajj is free. So Hajj is not obligatory upon a slave who is owned, because due to the fact that he is unable to perform Hajj because he does not have freedom. The fifth condition, that the person who is performing Hajj must have istita'a, must have ability. This ability is in two arenas. He must have the financial ability and the physical ability. So therefore a person must have the wealth that gives him the ability to perform the Hajj, to go there and to come back and to provide for himself whilst upon that journey. And as Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz mentions, that likewise there is enough maintenance or wealth that he leaves behind for his family also to survive upon. So he doesn't come back and his wife and children are living on the street. No, he must have enough financial stability to go to Hajj, come back from Hajj, provide for himself while he's there and upon his journey back, and leave enough provision for his family whilst they are remaining behind. Naam. So this wealth that he has must be sufficient with regard to his debts that he must pay off, with regard to his expenditure that is obligatory upon him, meaning upon his family when he leaves them behind, and also sufficient for his hawa'ij, meaning his needs that he needs by way of his food, his drink, his clothing, and his where he's going to live, and all of that which is connected to his journey to go to Hajj, to remain there, and to return. And that which he needs by way of his travel, because he has to travel there. Na'am. And in terms of his purchasing, even, as the Shaykh mentions, even in terms of the books that he may need to perform Hajj. For example, a person may need in his hands a book as he's performing the rites of Hajj, so he must have the funds to even purchase that book. So he must have all of this covered, and this is by way of the Hajj that is obligatory upon him. And the proof of this, that he must have all of this in place by way of financial ability, is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتِطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا وَإِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and from Allah upon the people is the performance of the Hajj to the house. What do we mean by house here? The Kaaba, right? For the one who has istita'a, meaning that he has the ability, ilayhi sabila, that he has the ability and a pathway that takes him there, meaning the ability to take him there. So all of this has to be in place for him to perform this Hajj. And also from ability, from this istita'a, is also with regard to the woman, that is specific for the woman, that the woman must have a mahram, that she must have a male chaperone. A male chaperone must be present for the woman. So it is not obligatory upon the woman to perform the Hajj who does not have a mahram to take her upon her journey. And a mahram here meaning an Islamically legislated chaperone. And we'll mention those in a moment. Otherwise, it is not permissible for a woman to travel to perform Hajj or to any other place for that matter, or any other journey, if she does not have a mahram. Whether it be, regardless of whether that journey be a short journey or a long journey. Regardless of the fact that she may even have a group of women with her. That's irrelevant. She may have 10 or 15 or 20 other women that travel together. That is not considered to be a mahram. So he mentions, regardless, Shaykh al-Fawzan, regardless of the fact that she is traveling alone or with other women, it is not allowed up until she has a male legislated chaperone. And that is regardless of the fact whether she is young and beautiful or whether she is old and unattractive. Makes no difference. And this is irregardless of the fact whether she is traveling by aeroplane or whether she is traveling by other than an aeroplane. And this is due to the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, that he heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam say whilst he was delivering a sermon, that it is not permissible for a man to be in seclusion with a woman except and up until she has with her a mahram, meaning a male chaperone who is legislated. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, and it is not allowed for a woman to travel except with a mahram, meaning a male chaperone. So then a man stood up in front of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I have a wife and she has gone out to perform Hajj. And as for me, I enlisted myself in the army to go out and fight at battle such and such. So the Prophet ﷺ said, leave that and go and make Hajj with your wife. The hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. So here, the Prophet ﷺ told him to leave what? To leave jihad. Because it is not allowed for your wife to perform this pillar of Hajj. If it is not allowed, my brothers and sisters, and this is the foolishness of many of our fellow Muslims, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them, that they say it is allowed for a woman to travel without mahram. Which is, out of the five pillars, as you know, they are the foundations of this religion. There is only one out of the 5 pillars that involves a journeying for the majority of Muslims. What is that pillar? Hajj. A woman cannot fulfill this pillar of Hajj except with mahram. So what about traveling for a holiday? Holiday wajib. Allah did not allow you to fulfill a pillar of al-Islam without a mahram. So how about going on a journey and going shopping, or I want to go shopping to such and such a shopping centre in London or in Sheffield, or this place and that place. If it is not allowed to go to Hajj except with a mahram. The Prophet ﷺ told this companion what? Leave the battle, forget the battle. This is not for you. You go and make Hajj with your wife. Because she needs what? Mahram. Barakallahu feekum. Hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. Then, the Prophet ﷺ, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions that the Prophet ﷺ did not say to the man, and did not seek from the man further questioning. He did not say to him, does she have other women that are going with her? He didn't say that to her. How many women are going with her? And the Prophet ﷺ didn't say to the man, is she young? Is she beautiful? He didn't say to her, is she old and unattractive? Because these are not considerations in this regard. The Prophet ﷺ did not ask, even if, do you think she'll be safe upon this journey? Prophet ﷺ didn't even say that to him. Do you think your wife will be safe? Is she going in a crowd that she'll be safe? So none of these considerations were made by the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said that a woman cannot travel except with a mahram. So when the man stood up and he said, indeed, my wife has gone to perform Hajj. She has left for Hajj. And I have enlisted to perform jihad. The Prophet ﷺ said, leave the jihad, leave the fighting, and go with your wife to perform the Hajj. Why? Because of the issue of the mahram. No other reason. Barakallahu feekum. Then he mentions, Shaykh al-Fawzan, and the wisdom behind preventing the woman from traveling without a mahram is to protect and to defend her from evil and corruption. And it is a protection of her from the people of sin and the people of wickedness and evil. Because indeed the woman, that she is deficient. She is deficient in terms of her emotions and her thinking. And she is weak also in terms of her body. So men can take advantage of her. Spin her a yarn, tell her lies, deceive her. And they may twist her mind. Especially if she is inexperienced. Secondly, that physically she is weak. She is weak in her body. And a man can take advantage of her. So for this reason, it is a condition that she has a mahram, and that mahram is an adult himself. He is aqil, he is sane, he is not majnoon, and it is not sufficient that the mahram is young of age, meaning that he's prepubescent, he's under the age of adolescence, and that he is insane. This is not a mahram. So inshallah, upon that, I think we'll conclude for today. And inshallah, what I'll do by tomorrow is maybe just repeat what a mahram is, the 7 categories of those who are related, and then the category of breastfeeding, and the category by association, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. So upon that, inshallah, we'll finish for today, and we'll continue tomorrow. We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. I think it'll be better after Maghrib because there's not enough time before Maghrib. So we'll continue tomorrow about 8:30, inshallah. 8:30, again, continuing. We haven't even entered into Hajj proper itself, but I think these are important muqaddimat or introductions to the topic. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.